All right, we'll go ahead and get started so we leave some time. Ha mitakiopi ampeti washte, iuha chante washte nape chihuzapi, washichia sendi farli amachapi, lakotia zintkala aloawi amachapi, wakba washte oyate hamataha. Hello, my relatives, and good day. I greet you with a good heart and a handshake. My English name is Cindy Farley, and my Lakota name is Songbird Woman, and I come from the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation in north central South Dakota. I am a program officer here at NAAF and will be the moderator for today's listening session. Welcome to the first of two listening sessions hosted by the Native American Agriculture Fund in partnership with the Native Farm Bill Coalition and their research partner, the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative. The purpose of these listening sessions is to gather as much input as possible for a report that will inform the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health on Food and Nutrition Disparities in Indian Country. Your feedback and comments are vital to help Indian Country get our voices heard. More than 50 years ago, the country's food policy agenda was influenced by the first and only White House Conference on Food, Nutrition, and Health. Today, our tribal communities are among those who have the highest rates of hunger, as well as diet-related issues such as heart disease and diabetes. We all know the statistics, and we all have pockets of our communities that are doing grassroots work to combat those problems. But for us to continue that progress, we need to do our best to come together and present a collective voice. I would now like to hand it over to, let's go ahead and hand it over to Lexi Holden with the Native Farm Bill Coalition.
Halito everyone, Sahachifoyat Lexi Holden, Chatasia. Good morning, my name is Lexi Holden. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I serve as the Associate Director of Policy and Government Relations for the Intertribal Agriculture Council, and I help lead the Native Farm Bill Coalition. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm currently calling in from Fairbanks, Alaska, where we're conducting a series of policy roundtables with stakeholders across Indian Country to help inform the work of the coalition. So if I jump off during this call, it's probably because my internet is really fighting me right now. So I hope that this is at all comprehensible for you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to my wonderful colleague, Kayla, also a member of the Native Farm Bill Coalition. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lexi. Anim Buju, Kayla Gabet Carroll. I'm a member of the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians, and I have the privilege of working on behalf of another great Minnesota tribe, the Shakopee Minnetonka community, who is an important member of the Native Farm Bill Coalition. I sit with Lexi and others on the advisory council, and just really happy to be here and to listen to all the important input that you have. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Hi, I'm John Van Poel with the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative. I'm the Director of Policy and Governance, longtime tribal government employee with the Citizen Potawatomi Nation here in Shawnee, former FEMA tribal liaison, passing it on to a former Citizen Potawatomi colleague of mine, Mary Bell.
Bonjour, Mary Bell Nadesh Potawatomi and Dow. Miigwech. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mary Belzuk, and I am a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. And I'm also over communications at the Indigenous Food and Ag Initiative at the University of Arkansas. So now I'll let Joseph introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joseph DeMasso. I am a policy liaison with the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative. Currently joining you today from the University of Arkansas. Great to be here today. Thank you. And Cindy, do I pass it back to you?
I'll go ahead and let Tony introduce herself.
Okay.
Tilhast iskunshuten Suyape iskunshuten Tony Singer. Sorry, right when I got ready to speak, the garbage truck went by. But it's nice to be here with all of you today and for this important preparatory meeting as the White House gathers all different stakeholders from throughout the country. We are here to make sure that Indian Country has a voice in that work and is represented throughout planning and engagement. So thank you all for joining us today, and we cannot wait to hear from you and the needs of your community. I am the CEO of the Native American Agriculture Fund, and I look at our partners that are joining us here today, and we all have beneficial programs and services that you can connect with. So our contact information will be shared today. So beyond planning and engagement for this White House meeting, we also encourage you to visit our websites and look at what our entities can offer you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So we'll just get a quick overview of the live and kind of what we're going to be expecting, and then the purpose of the report. So we hope all participants on this listening session, be they tribal members, producers, elected officials, etc., will provide relevant and necessary feedback from questions asked in this listening session about your thoughts, wants, needs in your respective communities or in Indian country as a whole related to hunger, nutrition, and health. Again, the purpose of the report is, like Tony said, the Biden-Harris administration has been hosting listening sessions in different regions across the country. But due to the high demand for participation and limited capacity in the White House listening sessions, NAAF and the Native Farm Bill Coalition wanted to come together to provide an opportunity for members of tribal communities to participate in an open virtual listening session. The comments received will be compiled into a report that will then be submitted to the White House ahead of their September conference. So with that, I'll ask to go to the first question. Well, the questions will be provided on the screen where I'll ask them out loud, and then for those joining by phone. And then once I ask the question, I will open it up for comments. Comments will be accepted via the question box and comment section for those joining live on social media. Like I said, we'll read aloud the comments. If you would like yours to be private, please send a direct message to our NAAF social media or somebody on here. There's also an anonymous option for Zoom questions within this function. So if you'd like to have your comments included in the report, please include your tribal affiliation with your comments. So with that, oh, I forgot the pillars. Sorry about that. So in the Biden-Harris listening sessions, they included some of the pillars of what they were wanting to include in the listening sessions and kind of get out of the September conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. The first one is to improve food access and affordability. Below you can see their White House examples, which, end hunger by making it easier for everyone, including urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities, to access and afford food. Number two, integrate nutrition and health. White House examples prioritize the role of nutrition and food security in overall health, including disease prevention and management, and to ensure our healthcare system addresses nutrition needs of all people. Number three, empower all consumers to make and have access to healthy choices. 4, support physical activity for all. 5, enhance nutrition and food security research. So the first question that we'll ask, and these all kind of come from the White House toolkit, but we can help them fit into Indian country and tribal communities as well. So the first question is, how has hunger or diet-related disease impacted you, your family, or your community? And then we'll start opening it up for comments and questions. Again, if you have a question or a comment, please submit it through the Q&A function or the chat box if you're able to. And then we'll read it aloud and answer any questions that you all might have while we have representatives from IFAI, NAAF, and the Native Farm Bill Coalition on the phone or on the webinar. And if we want, since there's no questions yet, does anybody from the Native Farm Bill Coalition want to speak on any of the titles that are related to, health, nutrition, and hunger.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in here. Kaylee Gayback-Carroll again with the Native Farm Bill Coalition. Just a little bit of background about the coalition for folks who may not be familiar with our work. We formed, I believe it was in 2017, with various partners from the Shakopee, Minnetonka Sioux community, IFAI, IAC, National Congress of American Indians, and others to prepare and include or make sure that Indian country was properly included in the 2018 Farm Bill. Advocating with a unified voice proved to be very successful. We secured 63 provisions positively impacting tribes, tribal producers, and tribal feeding programs, which has been great. So preparing for the 2023 Farm Bill, we've been holding various roundtables and listening sessions throughout Indian country to really gather some input and priorities on that. And I'm happy to share some of the feedback that I know we've been receiving as we kind of go through these questions. But as it relates to, our focus on the Farm Bill and where, which titles or perhaps where these priorities may lie, the nutrition title is actually a critical starting point for many of our efforts. It's Title IV of the Farm Bill. There's various titles that go through, anything from conservation all the way to our miscellaneous title, where we happen to get quite a few of our tribal provisions. And in the 2018 Farm Bill, for my other Native Farm Bill Coalition folks on here, feel free to jump in case I missed anything. But one thing that we've really been hearing specifically as it relates to this pillar and priorities for the nutrition title as we look longer term to the 2023 Farm Bill is the difficulty of tribal governments or tribal FDIPR programs or even tribal vendors from participating in the existing programs. We know firsthand that when tribal governments are able to procure food that's culturally and traditionally relevant, whether that be, through the 638 pilot program that was established for FDIPR in the 2018 Farm Bill, or through some other cooperative agreement or direct administration of the program, that we are really able to attack or highlight or provide resources for that combat some of these diet-related diseases that are plaguing our communities. For example, diabetes, hypertension, so many more things. So we know that while we made progress in the 2018 Farm Bill, there's a lot of opportunities to grow in this space moving forward, including making permanent or expanding the existing FDIPR pilot programs that are underway, and providing other opportunities for tribal producers to get involved. Another thing too that we find is quite challenging is that a lot of Native vendors have difficulties participating in programs and getting some of these healthy foods to address some of these diet-related diseases or to kind of limit their impact, because it's difficult. You have to serve these programs on a national level. So one thing that we're really trying to encourage USDA, the administration, and Congress for the next Farm Bill is to focus on how, if we can reduce this requirement from having to support the whole national program, but to rather focus on regional priorities. And we think this will also help tribal governments better determine and support local regional economies. But I see some things coming in the chat, so maybe we can turn to those for a moment, and happy to continue on as needed.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the first question that we got. How does fishery apply to this program? And, just to repeat this, this is not specified to one specific program. The Native Farm Bill Coalition is on, to present their stuff going on with their roundtables and advocating and getting feedback from tribal communities and producers for the next and upcoming Farm Bill. So it's not really a specific program. This is just kind of speaking about the needs so we can create a report to send to the White House before their September conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. So it's not necessarily a program, but fishery does fit into the Farm Bill, as a lot of our Farm Bill reps could talk about. But if you have any other questions, Mervyn, about fishing, or if you have any comments about it, what you want to see perhaps in your community related to fisheries, please let us know. Someone else said, returning to our traditional food systems and physical activity is the answer to restoring our health. How can these organizations help tribal people in these efforts? So one of the things is to help with these efforts is this is a really, we're opening the door and our ears to all of the people in attendance to get your comments and feedback on what you all need in your local communities, your tribal communities, urban communities, and what you'd like to see included in that. We have another comment from Julian from social media. Due to poor diet and lack of proper nutrition information, my tribe, the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, is plagued with diabetes. The power of plant-based diets is not communicated enough. Thank you for that comment, Julian. Does anybody want to speak to that on the panel?
I'm happy to jump in here a little bit. We all know that Native American communities often have some of the highest rates of diabetes across their nation, and even in certain states or parts of the country, it's extremely high. So I think some things you're starting to see coming out of USDA and why this is important is related to the White House conference, is that their goal is to, at the September 2022 conference, launch their strategic plan or comprehensive plan on how every agency across the whole administration can work to addressing both hunger and nutrition, but these diet-related diseases that are caused by the lack of nutritious foods or just lack of food in general. USDA has also been ramping up efforts to support mid and small size producers, but additionally, they've been recently investing a lot in producers and other vendors that are not in the meat specific protein, but alternative protein as it relates to plant-based diets and other important crops and resources that folks may be producing and consuming. So definitely exciting to see that the administration is taking a much broader look at dietary health. And this is starting to be trickling down into some of USDA's own dietary guidelines. But definitely important and something we'll make sure to include in our report to the White House.
Thank you, Kayla. So we have another comment in the box. Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Begay-Dominique. I'm the Federal Relations Director for the Rosebud Economic Development Corporation. It went away. Can you submit that question again? It went away. Huh. There it is. Okay. Faith is the Federal Relations Director for the Rosebud Economic Development Corporation in South Dakota. In Rosebud, our people face diabetes, heart disease, and food insecurity, to name a few. To help combat this, we have a food sovereignty initiative and prescription health program through our health initiative to promote fresh fruits and vegetables and exercise. However, we are always looking for more support and opportunities to continue our efforts. Thank you so much for that comment, Faith. Redco is also one of NAAF's grantees, and they're doing a lot of really good on the ground work in their communities, and it's getting a lot of really cool stuff out there to their people. Follow them on Instagram, social media. They do a farmer's market, I believe, too, in the summertime. So that's really awesome. Thank you, Faith. I think we can move on to the next question. So hopefully we get some feedback from this one. What specific actions should the U.S. federal government, including the executive branch and Congress, take to achieve each pillar? What are the opportunities and barriers to achieving the actions? Actions should include specific policy and or programmatic ideas and changes, as well as funding needs.
While we're waiting for some feedback, perhaps I can jump in here with a few things we've been hearing from our roundtables from the Native Farm Bill Coalition. As I previously was alluding to, the important progress that we had made to combat some of these dietary related ailments in the first pillar, the expansion of self-governance in USDA, both to more tribes and tribal feeding programs, but also beyond just procurement of food, but to other programs, even including SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and other opportunities where it allows tribal governments to really step in the shoes of the government and procure foods that are culturally, traditionally, and nutritionally relevant to the people that they're serving.
Okay, so we got another thing in the program. Offering these opportunities to nonprofits would be helpful, especially if your tribe doesn't have a food sovereignty initiative. For sure. So just kind of bringing back Redco's example of, their food sovereignty initiative and where they started. They are the economic development arm of their tribe, but a lot of nonprofits are doing this work. The Intertribal Agriculture Council, for example, they're the ones who created are in partnership with the Shakopee and IFAI and several others that I should have wrote down, but are very much important to Indian country. They helped create the Native Farm Bill Coalition and is kind of helping to get feedback again. Other nonprofits for food sovereignty initiatives, the Native American Agriculture Fund, NAAF, who we're representing too, we fund nonprofits to get into this work as well. Our RFA just closed, but we do a request for applications every year in the springtime for youth programming, as well as general programming that hits CDFIs and native CDFIs, tribes, state and federally recognized tribes, educational organizations, and 501c3s. So there are some opportunities. It's just, we have our websites and a lot of that is on there as well.
Echoing that, I think one thing we've also heard is the more inclusion of urban Indian organizations for programs, because nonprofits and urban Indian organizations are often working together to serve urban communities who without them would not have access. So definitely support the expansion of opportunities to nonprofits and also specifically urban Indian organizations.
For sure. And another example, because I seem to have a little bit of a brain fart earlier, but for an urban organization, the Dream of Wild Health out of the Twin Cities in Minnesota is doing a really great job at providing, access to food and providing opportunities for youth to work at their farm. During the pandemic, they gave away literal tons of food, expanded their growing season to help, fight the pandemic and give access to those who don't have access to food. So there are some, a lot out there that are doing this work, and we're really thankful for that.
This is Tony, and I'm just gonna give a little information about how our organizations have been working together to prepare tribes to be able to administer programs themselves and provide opportunities for their communities as it relates to food security, food sovereignty, and nutrition. The Native Farm Bill Coalition is our voice, our unified voice in coming together to bring all tribes, including nonprofits, information that will then be shared to our representatives and our decision makers. And throughout the year, the information that they gather will also be utilized within the budget building process, which is one of the most important parts of our federal government that often tribes do not participate in. As the fiduciary responsibility exists through the federal government to make sure that they are abiding by and caring for the promises made when the United States was formed, part of that includes continuing to offer assistance to our communities, whether they exist on or off the reservation. Our individual Indians and Alaska Natives and Native Hawaiians, they have a need. And in order for us to express that to the federal government, we needed the Native Farm Bill Coalition. NAAF and the Indigenous Food and Ag Initiative is wonderful because the work that we're doing together includes building up tribes to a place where they can create their own agricultural departments. At the Indigenous Food and Ag Initiative, IFAI, you will have access to a model food and agriculture code, which can help your tribe establish its own agricultural department within their government, which by then also gives you the same standing and a lot of opportunities for funding and servicing and regulatory authority that exists in state governments. It is our goal that we can make sure that tribes are represented and receive funding in the same manner that our states do. So your participation today and how our entities are working together is from the ground up. And by including our tribes and creating opportunities for them to self-govern, we talked earlier about the food and nutrition opportunity for 638 authority. That is very crucial. We need to make sure that those pilot programs through 638 authority in the United States Department of Agriculture, which is being exercised for the first time, are successful, so that we can show the federal government that we can administer these programs and services and thereby protect and help our membership and our communities thrive.
Thanks, Tony, for that reminder. And just as a reminder, so the White House conference pillars, the first one is improve food access and affordability. 2 is integrate nutrition and health. 3, empower all consumers to make and have access to healthy choices. 4, support physical activity for all. And 5, enhance nutrition and food security research. One of the biggest barriers and the reason why NAAF is in existence anyways is access to capital and credit for Native farmers and ranchers. And that's a very common theme throughout Indian country. And what NAAF's work is doing is, trying to help alleviate those barriers by supporting CDFIs and Native CDFIs getting, loan servicing direct to Native producers, so they don't have to go through all of these hoops and jumps to get funding. Another thing that tribes can do is to join the Native Farm Bill Coalition as either an ally, if you're a non-Native organization, or if you are a tribe, make sure to get in contact with either Lexi, who her internet isn't working very well, so she's not on this call. But if you contact us, we'll show our contact information at the end of this. But
I would add another priority that we've been hearing in the Native Farm Bill Coalition is creating a pilot program to enable the direct sourcing of locally produced herbs and spices as a part of nutrition education opportunities. And one of the reasons why we find this is such an important priority is that, great, you have access to healthy, traditional, or nutritious foods in your food packages, but do you know how to cook it, and can you make it taste good? And this is another step that will need action by Congress to do this, but tribes are ready to go and tribal feeding programs are ready to do this and already doing a lot of great education work. So we see this as an opportunity to really support and underscore the efforts that tribes are already doing. And just to be clear, you cannot currently source these through the existing FDIPR packages.
Thanks, Kayla. If there's no questions, I think we'll move on to the next question or comment. What specific actions should local, state, territory, and tribal governments, private companies, nonprofit and community groups, and others take to achieve each pillar? So you heard an example from the Rosebud Economic Development Corporation earlier about the action steps that they're taking to achieve those pillars in their communities, which is very, replicable. It's getting out there and listening to their community members and taking that and applying for grants. But we'd love to hear anybody else's comments about good stuff going on in your communities.
This is John from IFAI. Another way to think about this as well is I know there was a comment earlier about empowering nonprofits if the tribal government where you're at doesn't have an agriculture initiative, but perhaps giving some feedback on why that hasn't worked so far, maybe some barriers that you or organizations you have tried to start or work with to provide these services in the nonprofit sector. Didn't know what the challenge is, whether they were financial, whether they were bureaucratic, whether they were local, federal, how that has impacted getting those things rolling.
And again, just to emphasize, the comments that we get back today, we're trying to compile them into a report so we can hand it straight to the White House, and making sure that Indian country is included in this. So whatever comments that you have, and if, again, you don't want to make a public, or if you don't want your name on here, there is an anonymous function, or you can send a direct message to the NAAF social medias if you're listening live. Please just include your tribal affiliation. Oh, we got one. All right. A focus on sustainability is necessary for true food sovereignty. With 90% of all farmlands being monoculture operations, we are depleting our soil quality as well as depleting water resources. A focus on regenerating the soil is a must, as we have created the Dust Bowl with current ag practices. We need to take an agroecological approach to ensure food sovereignty and focus more on food production for the future. We are too focused on profit, therefore producing food and crops that we don't necessarily need. Thank you for that comment from social media. I don't know if anybody is on from the Intertribal Agriculture Council, but they have a whole staff dedicated to regenerative practices on their staff. They're doing a lot of research and work in that area and getting out there. They have incredible individuals working for them that's their sole focus. So any other questions or comments? And their website was posted in the chat. Thank you, Maribel.
One of the things that the Native American Agriculture Fund has on our website is a report on a new idea of how to build out agricultural infrastructure, food sovereignty, and food security. And that vision document, which we'll put into the chat box, is an overall picture of what this could look like for Indian country, and not only Indian country, but as pillars in rural America, where most of our communities exist, being able to stand up infrastructure for other community members is an example of how we can work together across what have formerly been very divisive in some communities' lines, working with other counties and with states. But if we can build up agricultural infrastructure in this production space with a regenerative lens, looking at how it will impact our future generations, which we identify some opportunities for that in that vision document, then we won't have to find ourselves in the predicament that we're in and that we had to experience during the COVID-19 pandemic, which were food supply chain issues. And in that report, we talk about transportation hubs and sub-hubs. So I encourage you to look at that as an example. And also the fact that you can use that information as a tribal government and a nonprofit in some of your strategic planning and coordinating together to help advance those hubs, the hub and sub-hub model.
Thank you, Tony. All right, we got another comment from Jackie. Some of the difficulty lies within the way federal funding is rolled out. Oftentimes, the timeframes for grants are 30 days from the date it is announced. Other challenges are centered around FSA and NRCS and access to these programs and the complexities of participating in them. What's more is the overwhelming amount of startup programs out there now possess the challenge in knowing everything out there and what fits our tribe best. Farming equipment and startup costs are beyond most individual capabilities. How can we address this? Starting high school ag programs and education, as well as incentives to go to college for agriculture in areas of interest. Learning more about how to start feeding our people with fresh fruits and vegetables, greenhouse development, native plant development management, and maintenance education, native plant nurseries. Thank you, Jackie. Those are really great comments, especially, the farming equipment and startup costs. That's one of the things that we at NAAF like to always think about in our funding cycles, as well as, the need for high school ag programs. We had a grantee a couple of years ago who was a high school ag program from Mission Valley in Montana. And they weren't a startup, but they were, trying to expand out and get some more resources so that more students could be involved. So it's definitely needed. Call the Akana group. Tony, do you want to touch on the Akana group?
Yeah, so NAAF is a drawdown trust. We will only be here for 20 years, but we're engaging in opportunities for the work and the legacy of NAAF to exist beyond those 20 years. And one of the initiatives that we were able to execute this last year was the formation of the Tribal Agricultural Fellowship Program, TAF. And TAF's entity just announced our 10 students that were chosen for this next year. TAF is its own entity. It is a 501c3 nonprofit. It has its own governing board and new executive director, Nicole Devon. We're really excited about that as an opportunity for students to pursue degrees in agriculture, and that includes vocational education. In addition, this program is unique in that it's very student support based rather than institutionally based. The students will have support externally as well as through their university, and high school students can apply as they're getting ready to enter their first year of college, where many scholarship programs require you to attend college for at least one semester prior to applying to a scholarship program. This way we can allow our students to attend the college that they would like, especially those agricultural-based institutions. And we'll put the link to TAF in the chat box as well. But if you Google Tribal Agriculture Fellowship Program, TAF, that press release just went out today. The other thing that we do is we have a relationship with a group, they're called a CANA group, and they can help individuals through federal government actions, which are tribal government actions, which include any agency. And most of our CDFIs have this capability as well, that if you are seeking out assistance for heavy equipment, and ACANA works beyond agricultural equipment, they also do equipment for roads and other construction needs, but you can get a GSA rate on that equipment, and that GSA rate can be used for individual tribal members as well. There is some mechanisms that need to take place behind the scenes in order to guarantee that GSA rate as it trickles down to the individual through entity of a tribal government or instrumentality of a tribal government. But that means that in some instances you are able to obtain equipment at what would be equity value of upwards of 40% that you would immediately have in that equipment. So those types of opportunities can be found on our website, Native American Agriculture Fund.org, but also please look out for the TAAF announcement, as we're really excited that that program currently is just launched, and it's got a lot of important value that it can bring to our communities in making sure that we're building the bench in agriculture across sectors. Students can receive degrees in communications and finance, because those are also part of the overall agricultural industry, and making sure that tribes have the expertise and professionals that are going to work in that space.
Thanks, Tony. And the Tribal Ag Fellowship is in the chat box if you guys would like to see it. We have another comment from Faith. She said, I agree, longer application timeframes, longer than 30 days notice before application timelines, so organizations and tribes have enough time to put together an application would be very helpful. Also, not including a matching requirement is also very helpful to make sure that there are no barriers to applying. Thank you so much for that comment. So I think we went a little bit longer on the questions, but we do have all of these questions available to submit for you all listening on the Native Farm Bill Coalition's website. We also have, we'll have one on NAAF's website, but we appreciate everybody who joined us today. You can submit those questions again. The deadline to submit these questions though is July 8th. We'll be taking comments until then. I think we can get one more question in. So what are, and we kind of covered this, but what are opportunities for public and private sector partners to work together to achieve each pillar? And again, the pillars are, improving food access and affordability, integrating nutrition and health, empower all consumers to make and have access to healthy choices, support physical activity for all, and enhance nutrition and food security research.
One thing to point out about the Native American Agriculture Fund is that we are a private entity. And because we are a private entity, when you apply for our funding, you can use it very creatively. And things that often federal funds do not include, like equipment and salaries, that can come out of NAAF's funding, allowing you to pursue federal funding and leverage both our private, and that's an example of the public-private sector and how we can come together. You can also utilize our funding for this last year. We had an opportunity for you to purchase land. And when you're going after a federal loan, either through rural development, some type of guaranteed loan, the down payment is often between 3 to 5%. And applying for $150,000 to $200,000 from NAAF could get you a lot of money if that's the percentage that you're putting down. So being able to utilize this public-private, knowing what private funds can fund and what the federal government can fund is something that our entities hope to come together, and the Office of Tribal Relations at USDA to make sure that we can share that with Indian country so you know what's available and where there are gaps and how we can all work together.
I know we're getting to the end, but we did add an additional question. Do you think maybe we could just throw that one out there, even if folks aren't ready to respond?
Yes, let's head to that one. Thank you, Kayla. All right, so how can the Indian Health Service, IHS, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, support hunger, nutrition, and health in Indian country?
And just to be clear for folks on the line, this one is not one of the pillars, but ties into several, but one that the White House is specifically looking for additional feedback from the various prep calls that everyone you see on this call has been having with them. So any insight would be greatly appreciated.
Also know that you as an individual or any of your family members, their voice matters. We're not seeking out input from tribal leaders alone. Elected officials are agency heads. We need to know how this is impacting everyone in both tribal and urban Indian communities. So please, if you don't feel comfortable asking or commenting on the pillars that were addressed today, you can contact all of our entities that our information will be shared, and we will make sure that your voice is accounted for in what the White House is going to present to all of the agencies, departments, and mission areas within the federal government that can impact Indian country, including these 3 departments. To be noted, IHS and through HHS and DOI through the Bureau of Indian Affairs have already been exercising 638 authority or allowing tribes to exercise that authority for many years, for entire generation, couple actually. So the fact that USDA is now going to allow tribes to show that they have the capability to do that is important. Earlier this year, when NAAF and IFAI and FRAC came together to request a survey from individuals on the impacts of COVID, we brought together those voices and that data gathered to present issues for the first time, data that was pulled from a Native entity through Native voices. And that type of information is what all of these departments will utilize when making decisions. And although we have a lot of negative statistics that have come throughout the years, for the first time, we're able to dictate what that data looks like as we obtain it. So make sure that you provide your information, even if it's just as an individual person that's impacted. Your voice is important, and we need to hear from you.
And just to add on to Tony's, you don't have to have your name listed. You can have it anonymous. Just include your tribal affiliation. You can send it in the Q&A function as anonymous, or you can send it via direct message on any of our social medias as well. So we have 2 comments from Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. And I think this is directed at us. At NAAF, do you guys often do presentations on the different projects you have funded? Oftentimes it's easier to understand and comment when you can see how a project comes together. We have all of our past and current projects that we've funded on our website. We're working on getting some more highlights to push out to everybody so we can showcase all of them. Like we said earlier, Redco is one of our past and current grantees, and they're doing a lot of great work. They have social media as well. One final comment she said is that there was very little support for so long, and now there is so much, it's overwhelming. Untangling the funding sources listed in one spot with clear application processes is much needed. We really appreciate that comment. Thank you, Jackie. And I agree, it is very overwhelming, but
NAAF's funding cycle, we have maintained the last two funding cycles that it initiates on April 1st. We hope to continue that. So throughout the year, any eligible entity has that on their calendar and they're ready to apply for that, but also so that they can plan to leverage that with other federal funds. When I used to work in the Office of Tribal Relations, the chairman of the Lumbee Nation also worked there at that time, and he created a lending table. And it was all the opportunities that existed for grants and that tribes could apply for or were eligible for. We hope that OTR with additional funding will have the capacity to provide that type of information again through USDA. But we're also encouraging and calling on the White House to initiate calling across the whole federal government what is available for all of Indian country. It will be lengthy, but it wouldn't be the first time. When President Obama used to host his presidential leadership summits, he required all of the department to provide the information. What did they provide for Indian country in the past year, and what departments and agency contacts? All that information is very important. We will work together to try to coordinate an effort to provide that to Indian country. Any one of our entities could help stand that up, but we are also hoping that the White House knows this is something that's needed, and therefore we can receive the buy-in from the federal government to make this happen.
thanks, Tony. We have another comment. Well said, Tony. The following is not a tribal affiliated comment. My thought is if when more federally recognized tribes take you up on your services to help them establish their own ag and health departments, then their increased capacity operationalizing food safety regulatory authority, for example, training tribal food safety inspectors, could facilitate transitioning long-term Indian country food safety inspections of firms and farms located on tribal lands that might otherwise be performed by state or federal entities. In such cases, when tribal regulatory entities are developed, then federal food safety regulatory entities could potentially partner with those interested federally recognized tribes in transitioning inspectional requirements of commercial firms located on tribal lands from federal or state inspectorate to tribal regulatory. God, throwing a lot of words at me, but I like your comment. Thank you. Inspectional services once suitably trained and credentialed. Thank you for that, and sorry for stumbling over that, but really great comment.
This is music to my ears because Janie Hipp, our former CEO and the former founder of the Indigenous Food and Agri Initiative and the founder of the Native Farm Bill Coalition, that issue was very important, near and dear to her. And before she left USDA in Washington, D.C. during the Obama administration to return home, she challenged the FDA to make sure that tribes were included in food safety, inspection, and regulation. Unfortunately, we've been left out largely to date. The Indigenous Food and Ag Initiative does have the opportunity to provide certification for food safety inspectors, are for food safety educators, but we need the inspection component of that. And so we have been doing training for many years now in communities, and IFAI can come to your community. It's really important for as many tribes to participate in the current training that IFAI has, but additionally, by obtaining that certification and building out agricultural departments, we can take over the authority to regulate and inspect all facets of food production in Indian country, which is part of the puzzle piece to make sure that Indian country can be in a leadership role as we move forward in exercising these new programs, funding opportunities, and especially regulatory opportunities.
Thanks, Tony. So we're just about 2 minutes out, so we're going to wrap up. Just as an FYI to all the listeners, the live stream at the moment is labeled wrong. Right now it's titled under Building Native Agriculture, but we'll try to fix it for you all to find it. But we're going to use these last couple of minutes to inform you all about our next virtual listening session, which if you enjoyed today, please come back. If you didn't feel comfortable making a comment today, please submit a comment on either NAAF or the Native Farm Bill Coalition's websites, or come to our next one. And please share to anyone who might not have made it today. Our next session will be Wednesday, June 29th at 2 p.m. Central Time. Again, all of this information is on our websites. And then I will hand it over to, there's our emails and websites. I'll hand it over to Tony and Kayla to make some closing remarks.
I already did a lot of talking, so I'm going to be brief. Visit our websites, not only for this information and the next session, but also for all the valuable opportunities that our entities are engaged in, as well as the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative and the Intertribal Agriculture Council.
And I would just say Miigwech to those who participated today and those who plan on submitting additional comments to either of our websites or participating in the next listening session. We are working hard to make sure your feedback gets directly to the White House. So Miigwech for everything that you're doing, and we look forward to continuing working with you.
Thanks, everybody.